Building a website can be fun, but even the best website won't convert unless you have traffic. And increasing traffic is what we're after in this course. We're going to improve the SEO of our site. That stands for Search Engine Optimization. And it means we're going to get our site ranked as highly as possible in search engines. In this course, I'm going to show you 2 different plugins to optimize your site. And along the way, I'm going to point out some WordPress settings that'll help you out even more. By the end of this course, your site will be ready for search engines and you'll be ranked as highly as possible. Let's jump in. Before you take this course, it will be helpful to know how to use and install WordPress plugins. It'll be helpful to have a site so you can actually install plugins on that site as we're going. It will also be helpful to have some understanding of search engines and how they rank sites. But if you don't, you can still follow along and the knowledge will still be useful to you, and I can explain things as best I can. We'll be covering 2 of the biggest SEO plugins. In Chapter 2, we'll look into the All One SEO pack, and in Chapters 3 and 4, we'll look at Yoast SEO, which tends to be the plugin I recommend. If you have a preference, you can watch just those chapters, but if you're undecided, I recommend taking the whole course and picking an SEO plugin at the end. A good place for us to start is by defining exactly what we mean by SEO. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization, and the goal with SEO is to leverage both the technical aspects of your site as well as the content on your site to rank higher in search engines. Let's take a look at a search page. For this course, we'll be optimizing a cake store website, so let's use the search term cake delivery. Google will always fill the results page with what it thinks is most relevant. So up here at the top, we have some sponsored ads. If we scroll a bit further down, we'll see the local results, which show us local stores. There are some local stores that sell cakes, and we can even see the location, a rating, an image, and a description of the store. This information is usually called microdata, and if you configure your site correctly, you can make sure that search engines have access to this information, and they can display it. Scrolling down a bit farther, on the right-hand side, we can see some more ads. These are totally separate from SEO. Many people start optimizing their site and do ads temporarily while they're waiting for their ranking to improve. After all of this, usually near the bottom, we'll see the unpaid listings, also called organic listings, and this is what we want to optimize. Now every search engine results page is going to look different. Sometimes there are no ads here or there are no local results, but there are always organic listings near the bottom. And if you can optimize these listings, you can see a huge increase in the traffic to your site. There have been several studies that have looked into click-through rates, and their findings are what you would expect. The higher you are in rankings, the more clicks you'll get. So if you're ranked second on a search engine results page, and you think you can get to the first spot, it might be worth doing, because you can more than triple the amount of traffic you'll get from that search. Similarly, if you're at the bottom of the second page for a specific term, and you think you can get to the 7th or 8th position on the first page, you can double or triple the search volume that you get for that term. So there's a huge opportunity to grow your business if you know how to optimize your site. There are a lot of factors for SEO. A lot of it has to do with your content, such as whether or not your message is unique or compelling. Search engines like Google notice when someone bounces off your website, and it's an indication that the content might not be very useful. So make sure that your content is compelling and engaging. The structure of your content can also be a big factor. If you have poor tags or categories, search engines will have a hard time understanding the structure of your site, and they might send users to the wrong page. Your content is also important because it's one of the main ways of getting links, and links are very important for SEO. You can think of a link like a vote for your site, and the more votes you get, the better off you are. So if you make an invaluable tool or post, you could get a lot of links, which will be very helpful for your SEO. Throughout this course, we're going to focus on the technical aspects of SEO. That means making sure that every page has a page title, meta description, and microdata. Once everything is set up, it only takes a few minutes to optimize a page or blog post, and that optimization will tell search engines everything they need to know. This will make sure that each page or post is ranked as highly as possible so you can get more traffic. Before we start optimizing, we need to know what keywords we want to rank for. Keyword research involves many tools, and depending on how big the project is, it could take a few weeks of work. We have a 4-hour course called SEO Keyword Strategy here in the library if you really want to dig in. What I want to briefly cover is that there are two basic keyword strategies and you should pick one before we move forward. The first is called the fat head approach. That's where you try to optimize your site for one or a few terms that have a large search volume. So for the store we're going to build, we could try to go for the keyword cake store. There's going to be a ton of traffic for that term, and if we rank well for this term, we could receive thousands of visits every month. The great part about the fathead strategy is that you don't need a giant list of keywords that you're always trying to optimize. You have one keyword, and all of your copy and pages are about that one keyword. The downside is that it's really hard to rank for a popular term. There are thousands of other sites trying to rank for the same keyword. What's a bit easier is the long tail approach. That's where you target a bunch of search terms that are less popular, but also have a lot less competition. So instead of trying to rank for cake store, we might try to rank for cake store in Carpinteria, or vegan cake store, or cakes for delivery in Carpinteria, or catering for birthday party in Carpinteria. All of these are going to be much smaller terms, and it will take a while to write articles or sections of your site for each of these terms. And since these terms are so specific, there's less competition, which means it's easier for you to rank well. Generally speaking, the long tail approach is going to be a much easier strategy. Unless your current site is already ranking well, I'd focus on long tail keywords that address specific questions your audience has. It's a much easier approach than trying to rank for a general term. For my site, I'm going to go with the long tail approach and have a few keywords in mind so we can start optimizing some of my posts for those keywords. We're going to mostly focus on the technical aspects of SEO within WordPress. But there are some technical factors outside of WordPress. And to really optimize your site, you're going to want to make sure that everything is accounted for. The first factor is security. Search engines are now giving boosts to sites that run everything through SSL. So if you can add a security certificate to your site, you can get a small boost. With Let's Encrypt becoming more popular, most website hosts are now offering free SSL certificates, and it usually only takes a few button clicks. You should absolutely run your site over SSL at this point. Some browsers, like Chrome, will tell users they're on an insecure site, or make a user click a button confirming they're okay visiting an insecure site. By making your site secure, you could see a small boost in traffic. The demo site we're using for this course doesn't have SSL. However, if this was a real site, I would make sure to have SSL before launching. And if you're optimizing a real site, please make sure that you have an SSL certificate before you launch. If you don't know where to get started, reach out to your website host. Most hosts have a free SSL option. Links are another important factor for SEO. As I mentioned earlier, a link is sort of like a vote for your website. If you have more links or better links, that means you'll rank better in search engines. Here's a few different ranking factors just for links. The linking site's popularity, so if Wikipedia links to your site, that's much more important than a random blog linking to your site. How related the site's linking topics are to the site being linked to. So that means if you have a website about cake decorating, then getting a link from a baking website is more valuable to you than a link from a lawn cutting website. Keep in mind, websites have multiple topic areas. So for my local cake decorating website, I might want links from cake websites and local websites, so search engines know I'm valuable in both of these areas. The freshness of the link, a new link is slightly more valuable than an older link. The anchor text used on the linking website. If someone writes, best cake decorating company and links to your site, that's way better than saying, click here. The trustworthiness of the linking site. The number of other links on the linking page, the authority of the linking domain and page, and social media mentions. So links are very important. And while there are nuances between different types of links, if you're writing good content and getting links for your site, it will help you rank. There are a ton of other ranking factors, many of which offer tiny benefits like the age of a domain or how long the domain has been active. And while these do offer a small boost, usually elements like this aren't worth spending too much time on. Since I enjoy sharing my thoughts, I spend most of my time writing good content and trying to attract links. But I do keep an eye on these factors outside of my website, and you should too. Try to tackle the big ones we mentioned in this video and maybe do a few more if you have time. Before we start installing WordPress plugins, there's a couple things that we can change that will make a huge difference for our SEO. If you notice, our URL is wordpressseo.local, which is a local development site, but then my specific about page is !page_ID =9. Now we can make that a lot nicer and have it look something like /about. Let's go ahead and do that in WordPress. So go to my admin, we'll go to settings, and then we'll go down to permalinks. And if you have any other setting, I recommend changing it to post name. Let's go ahead and click Save Changes. And we'll go back to our About page. And let's refresh it. The URL is now much prettier. Search engines prefer easy-to-read URLs like this, so this is the first setting that you should change when you're optimizing your site. Part of your SEO strategy will likely be writing content, and that content in WordPress can be grouped by categories and tags. Both of these taxonomies can be crawled by search engines, meaning that there is a page on my site that shows all the posts in the category Recipes. And there's also a page on my site that shows all the posts in the tag Recipe. One of the mistakes that I see often is when people try to rank for everything and compete with themselves. On this post, for example, we have a category called Recipes and a tag called Recipe. Google won't know which one to send people to. So you'll get some users that land on the category Recipes page and some users that land on the tag Recipe page. Your stats won't look impressive since your users are being divided into two different pages, and it'll be twice as much work to optimize your landing pages. Make this easy for Google and yourself and avoid crossover between categories and tags. In this case, recipes as a category makes sense to me, so I'd remove the tag recipe. I'll go to the blog post, and now I'll click Edit Post. I'll go down to my tags and delete the tag recipe, and click Update. If you want to take this a step farther, you can actually delete the tag itself. I'll go back to my admin. I'll go to Posts, Tags, and I'll delete Recipe. There's no hard and fast rules for categories and tags. Some sites exclusively use tags, and some only use categories, and many use a combination of both. As long as there isn't crossover where you have a category and a tag with similar or identical names, you should be good to go. There's one very important factor outside of WordPress which deserves its own video, and that is site speed. Search engines might penalize you based on your website speed because they know that it's a poor user experience. The slower your website, the more people will become frustrated and leave. If your website takes longer than 3 seconds, you'll likely lose 25% of your traffic. People don't like slow websites, so search engines will tend to show faster websites. There are a few things you can do here. The first is to get good hosting for your website. If you have budget hosting, something that's $5 or $10 a month, you might be running on slow servers, and no matter how much you optimize other parts of your site, you'll always have a slow site. So make sure that you aren't using budget hosting. This site shows in-depth testing for various hosts, and is organized by price ranges, so you can find the best host for your budget. The speed of your site can vary wildly depending on how you configure it. But knowing you have good infrastructure behind the scenes sets yourself up for success more than optimizing a site on a slow server where you might not make progress. The other large factor for site speed are your images. According to Google, over 60% of a typical web page size is from images. And one of the best ways to prevent your site from getting slow in the first place is by installing a plugin that optimizes images immediately upon upload. There are a number of plugins like TinyPNG right here, or Imagify that optimize a certain number of images for free each month. Speed is very important for SEO, but it is a very different knowledge area. If you want to learn how to speed up your WordPress site, you can check out Speeding Up Your WordPress Site here in the library taught by yours truly. Maybe I'm old school, but I love doing my work and browsing the internet on my laptop. But I'm in the minority. 57% of online traffic is for mobile devices. That's a lot, and that's why web developers have been talking about building websites mobile first for years. While you're building your site, you should think about mobile, and you should also think about mobile when you're trying to improve your SEO. And here's why. Google has a mobile-first index, and that's actually how Googlebot crawls your site. It simulates a mobile phone while consuming your content. Google has a ton of good suggestions on this page. The biggest rule is to have the same content for both your site on mobile and desktop. This is usually pretty easy with WordPress. Just have one website with a responsive theme that can be used for both mobile and desktop. My top recommendation is to make sure that you create a free Google Search Console account. Add your website to it, and then you'll be able to see any errors for desktop or mobile. You can only do this once your site is public, so I usually make a note to add my site to Google Search Console right at launch. And a few weeks after I launch, I browse through any issues Googlebot crawled over. You can spend a lot of time and money on improving your SEO, but if you ignore the mobile index, it'll only go so far. We're going to look at two SEO plugins in this course, All One SEO and Yoast SEO. Let's start with a look into All One SEO. I encourage you to set it up as we go. The next SEO plugin has an import feature, so if you don't like the way this plugin works, you can import your settings into Yoast and continue optimizing your site without losing too much time. One of the easier plugins to set up is the All One SEO plugin. For most part, you can install the plugin and it just works. Of course, we're going to customize ours to get the most out of it, but you still get some benefit just by installing the plugin. The plugin lets you create XML sitemaps, which you can use to automatically notify search engines when you add new content to your site. You can customize how your posts will be previewed when shared on social media, and the free plugin includes some functionality to add e-commerce microdata, which can be displayed on search engine results pages, or SERPs, as they're commonly known. If you've never tried to optimize your site, this is a great plugin to start with. I'll go to my site, and we'll go ahead and go to Plugins, Add New. Let's look for All One SEO. There it is. Let's go ahead and click Install Now and Activate. And now we're ready to start configuring the settings. Once you install and activate the plugin, you'll see a setup wizard. Let's go through this to set up the essential settings. The first question is about what category best describes your site. This information helps search engines know what information is really important. We're going to select Small Offline Business. So Google knows our location is really important. But if you can order your products or services online, then I'd probably select Online Store. The rest of these are pretty self-explanatory. Next, we can select our homepage title, and you'll see this is made out of placeholders or variables. The default is the site title for your WordPress site with a separator and then your tagline. I have some default content here, so let's go ahead and change this. All of these can be updated later, so you don't need to worry too much about these. I have some more default content here for the home page, so I'll get rid of this and update it. Let's click Save and Continue. On this step, we can select if the site is for a person or organization, and then fill in some contact details. This is pretty important. Make sure that search engines know your business's phone number so it shows up on the search engine results page, or SERPs. You should also upload your logo. This is all microdata that makes it easy for search engines to display rich data on those search engine results pages. Depending on what users type into the search engines, they may see your logo on the results page. That's why you should fill this information out. I'll select a logo I've already uploaded. If you know your social media URLs, add them here. We'll be updating all of our social settings later this chapter, so I'll skip this for now. Let's go to Save and Continue. And on this next page, we're asked what features we want to enable. The green check marks are included and the blue check marks are optional. If you scroll down, you'll see that these are pre-installing some plugins for us. As I look through this list, I was probably going to use Monster Insights for my analytics anyways, so I'll let them install it for me. But I will deselect any of the Pro features. I'll cover the Pro features later in this course, so you definitely don't need to select these right now. Let's click Save and Continue. On this page, the plugin shows us what our Google Snippet Preview looks like, and it's probably pretty basic for most sites. We can continue to improve how this looks as we go through the settings. We can also set if this is a live or under construction website. If the site is under construction, then it won't show up in SERPs. And since this is a test website, I'll go ahead and select that. Let's click Save and Continue. If you want, you can enter your email address for email tips. And you can choose if you want to opt in to data tracking. Since this is a test website, I'll opt out. Let's click Save and Continue. If you did select any of those pro features, you will be asked to upgrade on this page. Otherwise, you should be good to go. The plugin is installed and your site should already have slightly better SEO. We've configured the site-wide settings. Now let's add SEO information to our pages and posts. You'll want to spend a bit of time doing this to each and every one of your posts and pages. Once you get the hang of it, it should only take a few minutes per post. This step is critical going forward. If you're going to pursue SEO, you need to optimize your pages and posts. Before we do that though, I do want to show you what will be changing. If we look at this post about pumpkin pie, you can see the post title on the tab in your browser. That comes from the title tag in the HTML. That's what search engines use when they display your page on search engine results pages. And of course, you can see the regular post title for humans to read. Right now, they're basically the same thing. I'm going to show you when you might want to customize your SEO title. Let me click on Edit Post to go to our admin. I'll scroll down, and here we can see our all-in-one SEO settings. The most useful and prominent feature is the snippet preview. This shows us what Google should display in the search engine results pages. Notice the page title right now here uses the post title, and the description of the page uses the excerpt if you have that set. With this plugin, both of these can be overridden. So if we wanted to have a slightly different page title show up on search pages, we can type it in here. I could type in something like my pumpkin pie recipe. 9 times out of 10, you're going to have very similar titles. This functionality becomes really useful when you have a brand that's cheeky, sarcastic, or just not straightforward in some way. Let me give you an example. If I'm a well-known food blogger and people know I talk about food on my site, I could have a title like What to do with all of the leftovers after carving a pumpkin. And my readers would assume that I'm going to turn it into some sort of food. But to someone who has never seen my site, who just wants a pumpkin pie recipe, we should make it a bit more obvious. And for that reason, we may want to have this for our blog post title, and my pumpkin pie recipe for the SEO title. For most sites, the post titles and SEO titles are going to be very similar. I'll go ahead and leave my title as is. And now let's look at the meta description. We've talked about this a few times, but we haven't really explained what it is. Think of a meta description as the reason people want to click. The title might be a pumpkin pie recipe, but the meta description will tell us something compelling about the recipe, like it only takes 15 minutes to make, or something along those lines. Now, if we don't set anything, search engines will guess what's the most important sentence in our articles. And while they try their best, they usually guess wrong. It's usually the first sentence, which might not be all that enticing. So let's set a meta description for this article. I usually recommend taking a bit of content from the article and then cutting it down to the most useful information for the user. In this case, they might care about the ingredients, or how long it takes to make, or how good it tastes. I'll go ahead and delete the post excerpt here, and I'll type in. Let's go ahead and click Update, and let's take a look at the post. Now you won't see the meta description anywhere on this page, but search engines can find it in the HTML. I'll go to View, Developer, View Source, and under Meta Description, you'll see our meta description. One quick note on meta descriptions. Search engines don't always display what you set. If you set something that's misleading, like win a free car, and there's no way to win a free car, then search engines might change your meta description on the SERP. So be enticing, but honest with your meta descriptions. Now let's go back to the admin. I'll click Edit Post. Writing a meta description and SEO title can be hard to wrap your head around at first, But after you get in the habit of taking the most useful information and cutting it down to 1 or 2 sentences, it really only takes a few minutes per post. And creating headlines and meta descriptions that convert, meaning they get people to click, is one of the key skills of SEO. We added an SEO title and meta description for our post. This makes our post more enticing on the search engine results page, or SERP. But there's something else we should be doing with our posts if we've done our keyword research, and that's adding a focus key phrase. This post is about pumpkin pie, so let's add that as our focus key phrase. I'll click Add Focus Key Phrase. Think of the focus key phrase as the page we want to show up if someone uses this phrase in their search. So if someone searches for pumpkin pie, we want this specific post to show up. You don't want to reuse focus key phrases, so create a unique key phrase for each page and post. After you click key phrase, you should see a score for that phrase. You'll see some green check marks and red X's. These are best practices, so you don't need to fix every red X, but they are best practices for a reason, and many times they make your writing better and help users consume your content. For me personally, the hardest one to follow is including the key phrase in the first paragraph. I usually have a roundabout way of writing that eventually brings the main thrust of the post out only after explaining the problem, and I publish my posts even though they aren't all green. I'll take a few minutes and tweak this post to improve that focus key phrase score. Alright, that took about 2 minutes, and I rewrote the meta description to follow best practices and also make it a bit more compelling. When we optimize SEO for the posts at my company, it usually takes us 15 to 60 minutes. So do expect this to take some time, but it can really help your pages rank well for specific terms. If you like this sort of thing and wish there were more optimization guides, just wait until we get to the Yoast SEO plugin later in this course. When I went through the welcome wizard to install All One SEO, it also installed Monster Insights, which is generally good. I can set up that analytics plugin afterwards. The only downside is that this banner is at the top of my admin, and I can't dismiss it. So for the sake of making the rest of this course easier to follow, I'm going to turn off that plugin. You can do the same thing, or you can configure that plugin so the banner goes away. We've configured SEO information for the site, and we know how to add it to each of our posts. There are a few more things that can help with SEO. Let's go to All One SEO, and then Sitemaps from the admin. And here we can see the sitemap for our site. And the best way to explain it is to show it to you. So I'll click Open Sitemap, and you can see it's at our domain/sitemap.xml. And you can see that there are several subtypes: posts, pages, categories, etc. Let's go to our posts, and you can see a list of our posts, as well as some extra metadata. XML sitemaps give search engines a list of every single web page on our site. And when we add new content to our site, the XML sitemap is automatically updated and the search engines are pinged to index that new content. XML sitemaps give your content the best chance to rank because search engines know it exists the minute it's published. Let's go back to our admin. We can see some settings here, and the defaults are actually pretty good. For most websites, I don't recommend changes. Some sites that have a lot of customization might want to turn off some custom post types. But for most sites, you want all of this to show up in search engines. For one of my business sites, support forum threads are a post type, but we don't want Google indexing that because it's a private forum. If you have a situation like this, you can disable specific post types right here. The benefits of sitemaps only help if search engines know where to find them. They can sometimes find them on their own, but it's best if you tell search engines exactly where to find your sitemap. If you open up Google Search Console, which is a free tool, you can add a sitemap for a specific site. I'll go to one of my sites that I've already added to Google Search Console, or you can add a new site right here. Since this course is using a test website, I'm going to go ahead and show you a real live website. We can go down to Sitemaps, and here we can enter the sitemap URL. In most cases, you're just going to type in sitemap.xml, which is what we see back here. You can click Submit, and it'll usually take Google Search Console a day to properly crawl the sitemap. Keep in mind, if you're developing a site locally, this won't work. It has to be a publicly accessible URL. So you may want to add Submit XML Sitemaps to Google Search Console to your website launch to-do list so you don't forget it. Let's go ahead and add something that's not technically related to SEO, but the technology is so similar that it's often included in SEO plugins. Let's go to All One SEO and then Social Networks, and you should see this page. On the main page, we can list our social profiles, which you should do if you haven't already. We skipped this in the wizard, so I'll go ahead and add mine right now. I'll copy these URLs. And that's good for now. We can always add the rest later. Let's click Save Changes. We can also configure settings for some of the bigger social networks, including Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. Let's go to Facebook to show you how to configure some of these settings. For social media, there's a special format called Open Graph. And the settings on this page will add all of the Open Graph tags onto your pages. There are a ton of settings here, and I'm not going to cover each one. For the most part, social media sites do a decent job. We're just going to help them out when it's ambiguous. Let's review what I think is the most useful section. That's the section about images. Specifically, the default image source. As the saying goes, images are worth 1,000 words. So let's make sure that when someone shares one of our pages on Facebook, that the image looks good. Under Default Post Image Source, we can select the default image. For most sites, I recommend the featured image setting. This is something that you should set for each post anyway. The other option I recommend if you don't have someone who creates images for each post is the default image set below. I'll go ahead and select our logo, or I could select one of our other images and click Choose Image. This way, at least some image is showing up on Facebook next to your link. All of the rest of these settings are for very specific things for social networks. If you want to customize these settings, you can do so. If you're a brand new site, these defaults should be fine. Once you start getting a lot of shares, then it's worth coming back in here and tweaking things. We are working on a test website, so we can't test these settings because Facebook can't access this test website. This is another one of those launch items. After your launch, double check that these settings are correct by posting any URL into Facebook, and we should see a title, meta description, and the featured image that we set here. Click Save Changes, and we're done. Everything we've covered in this chapter uses the free features within the plugin, but you may have noticed that there are some pro features. For an annual fee, you can get a ton of extra features and support the plugin author. If you like this plugin, getting the pro version has a few advanced features. Probably the most useful would be WooCommerce SEO, if you have a WooCommerce store, and local SEO, if you have a brick-and-mortar location, because they will help you get more traffic and sell more product. But before you make any purchases, I recommend you go through the Yoast SEO chapter for another approach to SEO in WordPress. Yoast has a lot more options, it's cleaner, and I think you can get more mileage out of your optimizations using Yoast. And you should also make sure that you like the process of optimizing your posts. If you don't like that process, then these pro features probably won't help that much. Assuming you like optimizing posts, and you're a fan of All One SEO, and you want to dig even further into SEO, then the premium plugins offer a lot of power. Yoast SEO is in the top 10 active plugins on WordPress.org. Right now, it's the second most downloaded plugin used on more than 5 million sites. And it's the most popular SEO plugin in the WordPress space. They pioneered a lot of the features that are now standard in other SEO plugins. They're also experts in SEO. They have an amazing blog that covers every aspect of SEO and a ton of related topics like user experience, analytics, content creation, and more. They offer classes, certifications, and their newsletter is also really useful. We'll be using their Yoast SEO plugin because it has every feature you need to get started. And it's very extensible. If you have very specific needs like e-commerce, videos, or local SEO, they have extensions to solve those specific challenges. They also have a lot of SEO adjacent features built into their plugin, like sitemaps. This keeps your site lean since you don't have to install a ton of plugins. Let's go to our site, and just a note that if you previously installed and activated All One SEO pack, now is a good time to disable that plugin, to declutter the admin panel at least temporarily. Let's go to Plugins, Add New. I'll type in Yoast, and I'll see Yoast SEO. I'll click Install Now, and activate. That's basically it. You'll see a new item in the main admin menu, and you'll see an icon in the admin bar as well. We'll take a look at those in future videos. One of the neat features about Yoast SEO, and one of the reasons we're showing you this plugin second, is that it includes a really nice import feature. If you've previously configured an SEO plugin, Yoast can import those settings, saving you some time and headaches. If you skipped ahead and you don't have any settings to import from another plugin, you can skip this video. Since we already configured some settings in the All One SEO pack, I want to turn it back on for the transfer. Let's go to Yoast SEO in the menu, and then Tools. We'll want to click on Import and Export. We can actually import Yoast SEO settings, which we'll do in a future video. But for now, let's click on Import from other SEO plugins. Step 1 is to create a backup. If you're working on a real site, you definitely want to create a backup of your site before you import any data. We have WordPress backing up your site in the library if you need some advice on how to do that. Step 2 is to select our plugin. Then Yoast will tell us what they can migrate. I'll click All One SEO pack. Make sure that your plugin is activated if you don't see it here. For this plugin, Yoast lets me import general site settings, called default settings, and settings on each post, called post metadata. Let's click Import. This is only a small test site, so it should finish in a few seconds. But if you're moving hundreds of metadata about posts, it could take several minutes. Step 3 is to check your data, so let's do that. I'll go to Posts in a new tab. I'll go to our pumpkin pie recipe that we edited in a previous video. And we should be able to see our focus key phrase. So here's the All One SEO settings. Here's the Yoast SEO settings. And here we can see our focus key phrase. So it looks like Yoast imported the focus key phrase from All One SEO. We should also be able to see any other data like the SEO title and meta description. Step 4 is to go through the configuration workout. We'll do that in a future video. And step 5 is to clean up old data. It's always worth cleaning up your old data. It only takes a few seconds and removes a bunch of duplicate data. And since most SEO plugins have an importer, we can switch between them quite easily. Just make sure you clean up your data as you go. At some point, you'll probably realize you have a favorite SEO plugin, and then you can use that for future projects. But in the meantime, you can use these import tools to help you switch. The final step is to go back to plugins and turn off the plugin. For our site, since we only optimized one post and configured a few site-wide settings, we didn't have to import. But if you optimized an entire site, this can save you hours of work. We've installed the plugin and imported a few settings. If you're working on a test site like me, you might see this banner at the top of the page about the huge SEO issue blocking access to robots. That's normal for a test website, so I'm going to dismiss this banner. If you're working on a live site, make sure that you go to your reading settings to make sure that your site is visible to robots. Now we can continue. Let's click on Yoast in the menu, and we'll be taken to a screen that shows us notifications. One of them is prompting us to take the Yoast SEO configuration workout. This workout will guide us through the most important settings to make sure that they're set up right for our business. Let's click on that. The first step is to optimize the SEO data. Yoast will look over our site as the Google search bot does. They'll fix anything they can automatically. You do have to have a live site to do this. You can't do this on a website that you're developing locally on your own machine. I definitely recommend this step. One caveat is it can take a while and you have to keep this page open. So with those guidelines, let's start. We can configure the rest of the information while your SEO data is being optimized. Or you can click Continue if you want to skip this part. The next section tells Google if you're a company or a person. This can help Google display the best information on the search engine results pages. As a quick example, Google knows that Thomas Jefferson is a person, and it displays biographical information like date of birth. If I search McDonald's, Google knows that it's a company and a restaurant, and it shows me a logo, nutrition information, and stock prices. You can't tell Google what to display, but you can give them the best information. We should add the official company name, logo, and tagline if they weren't imported in one of the previous videos. Click Save and Continue. On this step, we can add all of our social media accounts. Now you don't have to add every single one. Our business, Topsy Turvy, just has a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest, so let's add those. This adds metadata for our social media accounts. They may appear in a Google Knowledge panel, which is what we saw a minute ago when searching for a person or an organization. I'll click Save and Continue. The next step lets you send site data to Yoast. This helps them know what are the most popular plugins that work alongside Yoast, and to make sure that there aren't conflicts. And the next step is to sign up for the Yoast SEO newsletter if you want. And that's it! Assuming your SEO data optimization from step 1 is done, you are done. Click Finish Workout. It doesn't feel like much, but search engines know a lot more about our site than they did a few minutes ago. Now that we've configured the site-wide SEO settings, we can jump into arguably the most useful feature in Yoast SEO, and that's the ability to configure SEO for individual posts and pages. So let's go to one of our posts. I'll go to Posts, and I'll click into a Cake Decorator's Essential Tools. We already have a title and content for this post, so it's just about ready. If we scroll down, we can see the Yoast SEO meta box, which has a search engine results page preview, a readability analysis, and a place to put a keyword or key phrase for this post. Let's start with the SERP preview. The title and meta description are what convince the user to click from the search engine results page over to our site, so they should be compelling. And right now I see a Cake Decorator's Essential Tools, Topsy-Turvy Cake Design, which is okay. But I think we can make this more compelling. Once you've given them your contact information and/or created an account, you should be taken to Headline Studio. Let's go ahead and add our headline here and click Analyze. And I can see that this gets a score of 43. Now writing headlines could be a whole course. We could spend hours talking about it and hours crafting headlines just for this one post. But with just a few minutes of work, I think we can write something a bit better. You can read through these guidelines to learn a little bit more about how to write a better headline. Or there's writing headlines in the library. If I change this to tools I use every day to decorate beautiful cakes, I get a better score. I went from a 43 to a 63. Still not perfect, but better. And I literally did this in a couple of minutes. After a few more minutes of thinking, I came up with 10 affordable tools I use daily to design and craft remarkable cakes, which takes the score from a 63 to a 74. Feel free to play around with this. Most website owners don't spend more than a couple of seconds thinking about headlines. So if you spend 10 minutes trying to improve your headlines, you're ahead of the pack, and it will become easier and more natural the more you do it. Let's copy this headline into our post. And let's use title case. Now let's check out the meta description. We can see my new title down here. And in the meta description, if I left it to the default, is usually the first sentence of the post, so it's pretty bad. For a post like this, I want to continue where the headline left off. Maybe something like, I'll delete this excerpt here, which is a variable. Each of my baking tools saves me hours and hours of manual labor. They range from the affordable to the high end. You should see a little green bar just below the meta description in Yoast. This shows you that your meta description is the right length. If it's red, that means it's too long or too short. Try to get it to just the right length so users can read the whole description. The same goes for the title. You may notice in the preview that with our long SEO title that only Topsy shows up in Google. The rest of our brand name is cut off. So let's remove that by removing that variable site title from the SEO title field. And we can also get rid of the separator. That wraps up the preview. It's very powerful to see what users will see when they're searching. You can put the right headline and description in front of the right user so they'll actually click your link and visit your site. The next section is the focus key phrase. Think of the key phrase as what you'd like people to type into a search engine to find your site. Now, keyword research is another massive topic. We have an extensive course here in the library. Check out SEO Keyword Strategy. But let's go with an obvious keyword like cake decorating tools. And this is a good time to point out that keywords don't have to be just one word. In fact, they're usually a string of words. Which is why good SEO tools like Yoast have changed that terminology to focus key phrase. Once you tab out of this box and scroll down, this is where Yoast SEO really shines. I'll click on SEO Analysis. The plugin will give you a list of best practices and rank them from red to orange to green. You want to get as many green lights as possible, but you don't need to obsess. We can tweak the title some more, tweak the wording a bit, maybe add some links or images. The one light I try to do every single time is to make sure that I haven't used the key phrase before. You don't want pages to compete for the same key phrase. If someone types in cake decorating tools, Google should know exactly which page to display from your site. That doesn't mean you won't ever have multiple results on one SERP, but you want to avoid competing with yourself. Showing you a test website is one thing, but I want to show you a real post. This is something we published just a few days ago at my job. Now this is a very long post, but if we scroll all the way down and look at our Yoast SEO information, we can see that while we don't have every single green light, we have probably 90% of the lights have been changed to green. And if you want to do a really good job, this could take several hours. If you've never done this before, there are a lot of links to click to learn how to have just the right number of internal links or images on a post. So try not to feel overwhelmed. Any optimization you do will improve your SEO, even by a tiny fraction. We'll go into more detail on some of these SEO optimizations in the next video. One other nice feature in Yoast is the readability score. Again, you don't need to obsess with that score, but do take notice. I tend to write with a lot of passive voice instead of active voice, and tools like this help me catch that and fix it, which makes the action a lot clearer for the reader. Now we can save this post and we're done. If you have other posts on your site, you can go through them and optimize. This is the bulk of SEO. Know what keywords people are searching for, and then have a page on your site that's optimized for that specific word or phrase. Use a headline tool to write compelling headlines, and try to turn a majority of these bullets green. In the previous video, we ran the analysis for one of our blog posts. We put a key phrase into our Yoast plugin, and we got a ton of multicolored bullet points back. Right now, we only have a couple of green bullet points, and the rest are orange or red. I could optimize this post, but I'd rather show you a real live post that we created at my company to show you how to optimize real content. A few months ago, we hosted a webinar, and after the webinar, we created a page on our site with a video and some of the larger takeaways. And while the page looks good, we haven't optimized it. So let me go to the edit page, and we'll scroll down to the Yoast section. And here you can see we have 6 green bullet points and a whole bunch of orange and red bullet points. Let's go ahead and spend the next couple of minutes optimizing this post. Let's start with a few red bullet points. The first one I want to tackle is the title that's too long. It's not uncommon to have a title that's too long, and that's fine for a web page because you control what it looks like on your site and you can make sure the whole title shows up. On Google, though, they'll just cut you off, and we can see that in the preview above. So it's worth tweaking our title so it fits in the Google SERP. Let's go up to SEO title and get rid of the title placeholder, and we'll manually write a new one. This title does 2 things. It's a few characters shorter, so it fits onto a SERP. And it also puts our key phrase at the very beginning. We had a red and orange bullet point, and we solved both of them by moving around a few words. We don't yet have a meta description for this post, and I have 2 colored bullet points about it. Google would have to take its best guess as to what we want to display. We can very likely do better than Google to write something compelling, so let's give it a shot. We'll scroll up, and instead of using the default excerpt, we'll go ahead and write one. Again, I put the key phrase at the very front, so the searcher knows exactly what we're talking about. And I added some of the benefits of design psychology, which should convince people to read or watch the entire piece of content. We're making some progress on these bullet points. This notice about image alt descriptions can actually be a little confusing. Right now, a robot has no idea what is in these images. We can go to the front end, scroll down to one of the images, and if we look at the HTML by inspecting it, we can see there is no alt tag. That means the robots have no idea what this is. So let's go ahead and add alt tags to our images. We can click on the image, make sure block is selected over here on the right-hand side, and add the alt text. The orange bullet point is still there, which is okay. I don't need to add a key phrase to the alt text of an image that isn't about design psychology. We still improved the SEO, even though it's not reflected on these bullet points. There is a bullet point about internal linking. Earlier in this course, I mentioned that links are like votes for your website. Your internal link structure also matters here. You should link to other helpful articles on your site. It will help Google understand what is most useful on your site and helps readers take their next steps. In our case, we rarely talk about design psychology on our site. But we do talk about Google Analytics. So let's go ahead and copy this URL and add it as an internal link on this blog post. I'll highlight Website Analytics, link, and add that page. We also have a post about CTAs. I'll copy that, go back to our post, scroll all the way down to the bottom here, and here we have CTAs. I'll highlight that, click the link, and paste it in. To be totally candid with you, this did take me a while. It probably took me 15 to 20 minutes. I knew we didn't have a ton of related content, and I really wanted to add some internal links. And we have over 900 blog posts on our site, so it did take me a while to search and double check that we don't have something useful. If you have a good idea of all the content on your site, this part should take you less time. We have more and more green bullet points. The last bullet points here are mostly about key phrases. For this post, our key phrase is design psychology. I'm going to add design psychology to a few places in our content, but I'm only going to add them where it makes sense. My favorite trick is to use final thoughts instead of conclusion. So I'll type in final thoughts and then your keyword. I can also add design psychology to the conclusion pretty easily. I can add it in that first paragraph. Once you put all of these 5 elements together, you will be able to approach your website with a design psychology mindset, which will increase sale conversions. The last thing I want to do is fix this red bullet about the keyword not being in the opening paragraph. Let's scroll up. And I can see that we don't actually include it in the first paragraph, and it's not entirely clear what our blog post is about. So let's fix that. We can add thinking about how your audience thinks is known as design psychology. Again, don't just add words. Make sure that they make sense for human readers first. I actually love that we improved our opening paragraph for human readability by listening to SEO advice. But if you think an SEO suggestion would make it harder to understand the topic, then it's not worth doing. Let's scroll back down to see how we did. And first, I'd like to point out, overall, the post is rated green for SEO. And we only have 2 problems left now. We started with 6 green bullet points, and now we have 13. I'm sure with enough rewriting, I could solve all the rest of these bullet points. But no post has to be perfect. Try to get as many green bullets as you can in a short amount of time. For us, that's probably an hour or 2. One feature we haven't mentioned yet is that you can click on this little eye icon. If you click it, you'll see the highlighted text relating to that bullet point. It's a really nice visual tool which shows you specific problems that you can improve. If you tend to have longer posts and you don't like to scroll down as much, you can also access Yoast in the sidebar by clicking this icon. And you can click into SEO analysis to see the same information we saw below. Update the post and we're done. Again, I want to emphasize that this might feel like a lot of work at first, but you'll very quickly internalize these best practices and you'll start to do it automatically. In addition to adding SEO information to each page, we can also add information for social networks. However, this is a premium feature, so you need the Yoast SEO Premium. If we're looking at the Yoast SEO meta box on the Edit Post page, we can click on the social sharing icon. And then we can configure information for each social network. You can specify an image, a title, and a description. Facebook uses a standard called Open Graph, which most other social networks also use. So if you specify an image for Facebook, it'll also work for Pinterest and many other social networks. The same goes for the title and description. There is one setting I want to double check. I'll go back to my admin, and then click on Yoast, and then Social in the sidebar. Then I'll click on Twitter, and I want to make sure that the default card type to use is summary with large image. This way, when someone shares your link on Twitter, the social network knows that you prefer a summary with an image tweet, but ultimately their algorithm decides what happens. So now, if these pages are ever shared on social networks, those networks know exactly how to find the title, description, and image meant for them. Truth be told, I rarely adjust titles and descriptions for a specific platform. Instead, I try to come up with the best overall title and description for a post and use that for all platforms and all search robots. But if you really want to optimize each network, you can customize the content for each one. When you're writing new posts, it's easy to add an SEO title and meta description. But clicking into each post to edit the title and meta description for existing posts can be tedious, especially when you have a few dozen or 100 posts to update. That's why the Yoast team included a bulk editor. Let's write a couple of titles and meta descriptions using that tool. We'll go back to the admin, then we'll go to Yoast, Tools, and then Bulk Editor. And we can now tab between titles and meta descriptions. Let's start with a few titles. And before I do, I'll sort by publication date. Let's change Planning for Your Big Event to 3 Tips for Planning Your Wedding Cake. People will definitely search for wedding cake, so we want to make sure that that shows up in the search results. And let's change Birthday Cake for Fido to Healthy Birthday Cake for Your Pet. This post is about a birthday cake for your pet, so let's make sure that that shows up in the SEO title. When you're done, you can click Save or Save All. Now let's do the same thing for meta descriptions. One thing to keep in mind is that you do have to press Save on both pages, so before you switch tabs, just remember to press that Save button. We'll go ahead and edit these same posts. For the wedding cake post, let's go ahead and write this description. Don't be caught by surprise. Order your cake on time, get a tasting, and make sure it's delivered safely. All of these terms I added are probably things that people are actually searching for. For example, how soon do I order my cake? How do I get a tasting for my cake? How do I make sure it's delivered correctly? So when people search for these terms, they'll see these words bolded in the search engine results page, which makes this a very good meta description. For Birthday Cake for Fido, let's use how to safely pamper your pet with a healthy birthday cake filled with vegetables, oats, and meat. In this case, I wanted to point out that we're talking about pets, we're talking about pampering, we're talking about birthday cake, and I specifically left out chocolate, which is dangerous for dogs. I'll go ahead and click Save All so I don't lose any progress. If you have a ton of titles to write, I'd start by filtering by post type. Maybe all of your products first, then your blog posts, and then your pages. It'll make this process a little more manageable. You shouldn't have to use this tool often, but if you ever do a big SEO audit, you may have hundreds of posts that need to be updated. One thing to note, this tool edits the SEO title, not your blog post title. So you'll see this on the search engine results pages, the SERPs, not on the blog post itself. If you want to edit blog post titles, you can edit each one individually, or you can export your WordPress content, edit in a spreadsheet, and re-import it. We talked about the title separator briefly while going through the configuration workout. That's the little symbol between the page title and the site name. And this is just one of the settings that we can tweak to change how our page shows up in the search engine results page, or SERP. Yoast has done a great job putting all of these settings together on one page. Let's go to our site, and under Yoast SEO, you can click Search Appearance, and you'll see this page. The first setting is the title separator. This is purely aesthetic, so pick one that works for your brand. The default dash or pipe character are my favorite. The next two settings are for the home page of your site. These settings are useful when you have a long list of blog posts as your homepage. But under Settings Reading, if you do have a specific page set as your homepage, then you can go into that specific page to edit your SEO settings. Or by clicking the link here. If you ever wanted to change the knowledge graph, which helps search engines understand what your site is about, you can do that here. There's multiple tabs on this page, and content types is one of the more useful ones. We can request what sort of content appears in search engines. So right here, I can see that we have posts, which do show up in search engines, and pages, which also show up in search engines. The default post types are pages and posts, but if you've installed plugins, you may see a few extra post types here. As an example, if you have a custom post type for coupons, that doesn't have to be optimized for SEO. You can disable the Yoast SEO meta box. That way, whoever manages coupons isn't confused by those settings. If you build sites for clients, it can be really useful to hide settings that don't make sense. I'm a big fan of preventing problems, and turning off settings that don't make sense for a particular post type can definitely prevent a problem. We can also control the default SEO title and meta description for each type. As an example, if we tend to have shorter blog post titles and a short site title, we could add categories to our SEO title if we wanted. Yoast gives you a lot of tools to customize if and how each type of content is displayed. There are a ton of other settings to tweak if you want to dig in. Most sites won't need this level of customization, but it's here if you need it. When you're done, click Save Changes at the bottom. One of the great features built into Yoast SEO is the XML sitemap functionality. XML sitemaps are helpful for search engines, as it gives them the full list of pages to crawl. They don't have to find each page individually. You could install a separate sitemap plugin, and I'm typically a fan of multiple smaller plugins that each do one job very well. But because SEO functionality and XML sitemap functionality are so similar, this is one of those cases where it's easier to get all of the features in one plugin. I'll go to my admin, and we can see our sitemap and make sure it's turned on under Yoast SEO, General, and then Features. Then we scroll down to XML sitemaps and click the little question mark icon. You can read a little bit more about why XML sitemaps are important, or I'm going to click this link to see our XML sitemap. Now we can see what a search engine sees. While we're here, let's do a once-over to make sure that everything is showing up. If you have 10 blog posts, go ahead and click into Post Sitemap and make sure that all 10 blog posts are right there. You can do the same with pages, categories, and other post types. There is one more thing we can do. We can add the sitemap to search engines. Yoast has instructions for all sorts of search engines, but we're going to focus on Google because it's the biggest. If you haven't already, sign into Google Search Console and add your website to it. I've gone ahead and added my personal podcast, Indie Board Game Designers, to Google Search Console. Once you have your site added and selected in the sidebar, you can find sitemaps under Index and then Sitemaps. In this case, you can see that I've already added 2 sitemaps. If you have an old website, you can delete any old sitemaps, and then go ahead and add the new one right up here. Going back to our Yoast file, we can see that our sitemap is at sitemap_index.xml. So if we copy this in and paste it, Google will know where to find our sitemap. In this case, I've already added it. If you do this and you see an error, make sure that your site is publicly accessible so Google can read the XML sitemap. If you're 100% sure that your site is publicly accessible, it sometimes takes Google a while to find and process sitemaps. Try submitting it and checking it again the next day. We can close Google Search Console and be very happy with this sitemap functionality. Some other sitemap plugins might force you to manually update your sitemap after every post, which can take time. Yoast, on the other hand, does everything in the background. Sitemaps are highly automated, so with any luck, you should only have to configure this one time. Earlier in this course, we connected our site to Google Search Console, but we didn't connect to any other similar tools. We can do that under Yoast SEO, General, and then Webmaster Tools. There are multiple ways to verify a site, so if you've already verified your site, you don't have to redo anything here. But if you haven't done so already, click on these links to get started. There used to be a feature in Yoast called Search Console. Once you connected your site to Google Search Console, Yoast would pull in the errors automatically. Unfortunately, Google Search Console removed the API, so this is no longer possible. But Yoast is working on a replacement feature. So for right now, connecting your site to Webmaster Tools is very useful, but you have to go into the individual tool to view any issues. Hopefully, at some point in the future, Yoast will be able to replace this functionality and automatically bring the errors into your site so you notice them and you can fix them. I've mentioned Google Search Console a few times, and it's there to let you know when there's an error crawling your site. And let me show you what this looks like on a site that I manage every day. So I'll scroll down, and under Coverage, I can see 2 pages with errors. Let's click into the full report. We can see the 2 errors and when they started. And I see one here called a soft 404. Let's click into that. And I can see that there's a page called Site-Wide Sales Launch, which I've pulled up over here. And as you can see, this is basically an empty page. This is actually an old sales page, and it doesn't need to exist anymore. Let's delete and redirect the page. If you're using the free version, you can delete the page and WordPress will serve a proper 404 notice. This is actually an improvement for Google Search Console since now it knows this page is deleted. Then we can go back to a Google Search Console and mark this as fixed. Up until this point, everything can be done with the free version of Yoast. If you have the premium version of Yoast, which is available on their site, there is another way. I'll go back to my site, and I'll click on Edit Page, and I'll click Move to Trash. Whenever you do this, if you have Yoast SEO Premium, it'll prompt you to redirect to another URL, or serve a 410 content deleted. Generally speaking, we want to redirect to a new URL. I already know the URL I want to send them to. It's this one right here. So I'll copy that and click Redirect to another URL. Enter the new URL and click OK. Now any sites that point to this outdated link will be redirected to the correct page. If you don't want to spend the money, there are some free redirection plugins in the WordPress repository. They'll work, but they aren't nearly as efficient as this. It's a real time saver to delete a page and set up a proper redirect. The redirect feature also works when you change URLs. I review my Google Search Console maybe once a month and do a quick check to make sure that all my links are working for both my users and for Google. When you're done making all of your changes, click Validate Fix. Google will attempt to validate the errors fixed and remove it from your list of errors. The vast majority of your SEO needs can be handled by the free plugin on WordPress.org, but there are a few really useful features that are available in the premium plugins. The premium version of Yoast SEO includes a couple of powerful features. The redirect feature, which we showed in an earlier video, lets you create redirects whenever you delete or redirect a page, which is a huge time saver. If you're very big into keywords, another feature is letting you have more than one keyword per post. This is especially useful if your industry has a lot of synonyms. And there are a few other features in there. There's also the Yoast WooCommerce plugin. This helps if you're using WooCommerce on your site. You can enable rich pins in Pinterest, so anytime someone pins something from your website, it'll include metadata like the price, if it's in stock, and of course, a link back to the product page. Features like this will make better pins on Pinterest, which should get you more traffic. It also replaces the WooCommerce breadcrumbs with the Yoast ones. This means you don't have to duplicate a bunch of work getting the 2 different breadcrumb systems to work together. There's also the Local SEO plugin. If you have a physical location, this will help mapping websites like Google Maps understand exactly where you are. If you have a physical location, this one can be pretty useful. For topsy-turvy cake design, this is probably the most useful premium plugin after Yoast SEO Premium. You can see all their WordPress plugins on their site. There are a few more if you do a lot of news or videos. I've personally used the free version of Yoast for years, and you don't have to get the premium versions, but if you want to optimize your time, they're worth considering. There's one more feature that'll mostly apply to users who build sites for clients. We spent a little bit of time setting up all of these SEO settings. We can actually export these settings, clean them up a little, and then import them into another site. Then you won't have to go through the welcome wizard as most of the settings will already be configured. Let's go to Yoast SEO, Tools, and then Import Export. Then we can click on Export Settings, and let's click the bright blue button to export our settings. We can copy and paste this into a code editor. I'll use Atom, but you can use any code editor you want. We just need to tweak this a little bit so that it can be reused. We want to keep all the general settings and erase all the information specific to this site. I'll make sure to get rid of home URL, I'll get rid of the company logo and ID. I'll get rid of the company name and whether it's a company or person. And let's remove some of these social media accounts. You might see a Facebook Connect key. If you do, you'll want to get rid of that one too. And then you want to save the file. And now, the next time you install Yoast, you don't have to go through the setup wizard. Go straight to Yoast, Import Settings, and then copy the contents of this file right here. If you set up a lot of sites for clients, this reusable import file should help you skip a couple steps and save a bunch of time. We configured 2 different SEO plugins for your WordPress website, and we optimized a few posts together to show you how to use this plugin with your content. Now, you have to figure out the right keywords for your best posts, add them into your SEO plugin of choice, and optimize each one. Moving forward, one of the best things you can do is create a new habit to choose a keyword before writing your post, then write the post, and optimize that post before publication. Even just 15 minutes of research or strategy about the best keyword before writing a post, and 15 minutes of optimizing a post after it's written can really improve your SEO game. I have a few articles that rank number 1, and that wouldn't be possible without optimizing my posts using an SEO plugin. And do keep writing content for your site. I have articles from 6 years ago that still bring in a ton of traffic. And you never know which post will be a hit. Some will be flops, and the others will be huge successes. The key is to keep writing until you figure it out.